Did you actually see a gun?
No, shit. Once he got the reaching, I got the ducking.
So someone from your car
That's what happened.
started shooting at Tupac and Suge.
Puffy was hanging out one day, and he wasn't serious about it, but it was floating in the air. He made a comment.
You just gonna...
Imagine this, a decades-old mystery, a trail of whispers, and a courtroom buzzing with tension. The recent developments in the case of Duane Keefe D. Davis, the man accused of being tied to one of the most infamous nights in music history, have sent shockwaves through the industry and beyond. You'd think a case this old would be straightforward by now, right? Wrong. It's only getting messier, and the twists are juicier than ever. Keefe D., a name that's been floating around the hip-hop world for years, is now at the center of a legal storm, with new allegations, new evidence, and a timeline that keeps being pushed back. Originally set to face trial next year, his day in court has now been delayed until 2026, giving his defense team time to dig deeper into claims that could change everything we thought we knew. But here's where it gets wild. There are whispers that this delay is more than just about scheduling. Some are saying that Keefe D might be preparing to drop a bombshell. A deal, a name, and not just any name, one that could make headlines worldwide.
We are here today to announce the arrest of 60-year-old Duane Keefe Davis.
To understand why this case is so explosive, you have to rewind to that fateful night in September 1996 on the Las Vegas Strip. Shakur, one of the most iconic figures in music, was riding in a car driven by Suge Knight when shots were fired from another vehicle. Shakur was struck multiple times, and the world lost a cultural legend just days later. The aftermath was chaos. Fingers pointed in every direction. Theories ran rampant. Was it a random act of violence, a gang feud, or something far more sinister? A hit orchestrated at the highest levels of the music industry.
For 27 years, the family of Tupac Shakur has been waiting for justice.
For years, the case sat cold, collecting dust in the archives of unsolved mysteries until Keefe D's name started popping up in connection with the events of that night. And it wasn't just hearsay. Keefe himself seemed to add fuel to the fire with his own words. In interviews and even in his memoir, he described his role in the events leading up to and following Shakur's final moments. He placed himself at the scene, in the car, and implicated others who are no longer around to answer questions. But now, as his own trial looms, his team has come forward with new claims that could flip the narrative on its head.
Yeah.
So Orlando shot across Dre?
He leaned over on the window, we rolled down the window, popped.
So, what's the big twist? Keefe D's lawyers are claiming they've uncovered evidence proving he wasn't even in Las Vegas that night. That's right, new witness testimony could allegedly confirm his alibi, casting doubt over the prosecution's case. But that's not all. They're also pointing fingers in a new direction, hinting that someone else entirely orchestrated the events that led to Shakur's tragic end. The name being floated? Reggie Wright Jr., who worked security for Suge Knight's Death Row Records at the time. In a court filing, Keefe D's defense accused Wright and his team of pulling the strings behind the scenes, suggesting that the drive-by was part of a larger plot. According to Keefe's legal team, they've already got a private investigator interviewing witnesses who can testify to this theory when the trial finally kicks off. And here's the kicker. Reggie Wright Jr. has denied it all, calling the accusations baseless and heartbreaking. Good luck finding someone saying that's credible, Wright said in response. But let's be real. When it comes to a case like this, credibility isn't always the point. Sometimes the mere suggestion is enough to set the internet on fire.
As they were in the white Cadillac, Mr. Davis took the gun that he had obtained and provided it to the passengers in the rear seat of the vehicle.
Now, let's talk about the elephant in the room. For years, there have been whispers that Sean Diddy Combs, one of the biggest names in music, might somehow be connected to this tangled web. The East Coast-West Coast feud of the 1990s was more than just a rivalry, it was a battleground. On one side, you had Shakur and Death Row Records, led by the larger-than-life Suge Knight. On the other, Diddy and his Bad Boy Records, with the notorious B.I.G. as their crown jewel. The feud escalated to dangerous levels, with diss tracks, public confrontations, and enough bad blood to fill an ocean.
You was cool with it, right? So was you a Tupac fan before, when you joined Death Row?
Yeah, it was cool. Tupac, he was out there as a rapper.
Shakur himself stoked the flames, accusing Diddy and Biggie of being involved in a 1994 attack on him at a New York recording studio. Although both denied any involvement, the accusations fueled a fire that would eventually consume the entire hip-hop community. Fast forward to 1996, and Shakur's demise felt like the tragic climax of a saga that had spiraled out of control. But was it really just the result of a feud, or was there something more calculated behind the scenes?
Puffy, if I'm not mistaken, Puffy, he approached you on 3 different occasions, right? About pitting a hit on Tupac and Suge.
This is where Keefe D's rumored deal comes into play. According to insiders, or at least people claiming to be insiders, Keefe might be ready to cut a deal with prosecutors to save himself. And the name he's allegedly willing to give up? Diddy. If true, this would be the kind of revelation that blows the lid off everything. Think about it, a direct link between one of music's most powerful moguls and one of its darkest chapters. It's the kind of thing that could rewrite history and tarnish legacies forever. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So far, these are just rumors. Keefe D's legal team hasn't confirmed anything, and Diddy himself has always denied any involvement in Shakur's tragic end. In fact, when pressed about the subject in interviews, he's been adamant that he had nothing to do with it, brushing off the accusations as nonsense. Still, the timing of all this can't be ignored. With Diddy now facing a string of unrelated legal troubles, including allegations of misconduct that have rocked his empire, it's hard not to wonder if the walls are closing in.
Now for what's trending in true crime, nearly 30 years after the legendary rapper Tupac Shakur, the man accused of his is now claiming that Sean Diddy Combs once ordered a hit on the rap icon. In a recent court filing, a 2009 interview between police and Duane Keefe D Davis is making headlines yet again.
And here's where it gets even more interesting. Keefe D isn't just fighting for his freedom, he's also fighting to control the narrative. By suggesting that he wasn't even in Las Vegas that night, he's not just defending himself, he's opening the door for a completely new version of events to come to light. Whether that version points to Diddy, Reggie Wright Jr., or someone else entirely remains to be seen. But one thing's for sure, the trial, when it finally happens, is going to be must-see TV.
One of the most important things, in my opinion, is we need to make this be a reminder that the charge of murder does not have a statute of limitations.
Of course, all of this is happening against the backdrop of an industry that has been grappling with its own reckoning. The 1990s were a time of excess ego and unchecked power, and the fallout is still being felt today. The demises of Shakur and Biggie weren't just tragedies, they were wake-up calls. Yet decades later, the questions remain. Who was really behind it all? And will we ever get the full truth? As Keefe D's trial inches closer, or more accurately, as it gets pushed further away, the speculation is only going to grow. Will his legal team's new evidence hold up under scrutiny? Will the accusations against Reggie Wright Jr. gain traction? And perhaps most intriguingly, will Keefe D take the stand and point the finger at Diddy? The answers to these questions could change everything. For now, all we can do is wait and watch as the pieces of this puzzle slowly come together. But one thing's for sure, the story of Shakur's final chapter is far from over, and with each new twist, it becomes clearer that the truth might be even more shocking than anyone ever imagined.
I think the best way to characterize that is Duane Davis was the shot caller for this group of individuals that committed this crime.
The stage is set, history is waiting to be unraveled, and the feud that defined an entire era of music still casts a shadow over the industry today. To understand why the case surrounding Keefe D, Shakur, and the whispers about Sean Diddy Combs feels like a bomb ready to explode, you have to go back to the 1990s. A time when hip-hop wasn't just music, it was a battleground. And at the heart of it all, a rivalry so intense, so personal that it created a cultural earthquake, the East Coast versus West Coast feud.
People were starting to say it's an East Coast, West Coast rivalry because it was people that's trying to make money. It was true people trying to make careers, it was people trying to get famous.
Picture this, the early 1990s. Hip-hop was skyrocketing, becoming more than just a genre. It was a lifestyle, a movement, and a multi-million-dollar industry. On one side of the country, you had New York City, the birthplace of hip-hop and the home of Sean Combs, then known as Puff Daddy, and his powerhouse label Bad Boy Records. On the other side, Los Angeles was rising fast, with Suge Knight's Death Row Records dominating the charts and the streets with artists like Dre, Snoop Dogg, and eventually Shakur. What started as a competition for chart dominance turned into something much darker, a feud that would shake the world.
So he said that Diddy came to the jail and said that, hey, I'll give you $2.3 million or something like that, or 23. I don't know if it's 2.3 or $23 million to make this go away. We'll leave this alone the whole 9 yards. Just like I just said, he's trying to pay people off to make things go away, for them to drop their suits and everything like that.
The rivalry wasn't just business, it was deeply personal. At the time, both Diddy and Suge were larger-than-life figures, and their egos were just as big as their bank accounts. Suge, a towering and intimidating presence, was the undisputed king of the West Coast scene. Meanwhile, Diddy was the flashy, fast-talking mogul of the East Coast, known for his lavish parties, designer suits, and knack for turning artists into global superstars. But beneath the surface, tensions were brewing. It wasn't just about who had the better beats or sold more records. It was about power, respect, and control.
Is that I don't want to be involved in the stuff where it's negative stuff.
Hi, how do you do?
I need to talk to him.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Things really started heating up after Shakur's infamous encounter at Quad Studios in Manhattan in 1994. He was ambushed and injured in the lobby of the building, and while no one was ever officially charged, Shakur pointed fingers directly at Bad Boy Records, claiming that Diddy and Biggie had prior knowledge of the attack. Whether true or not, this accusation lit the match that would ignite the East Coast-West Coast rivalry. From that moment on, the lines were drawn and the feud became a full-blown war. Diddy and Suge, as the masterminds behind their respective labels, were seen as the generals in this battle, and their animosity played out both publicly and behind the scenes. One of the most infamous moments came during the 1995 Source Awards, a night that's gone down in hip-hop history. Suge took to the stage and, without naming names, threw a not-so-subtle jab at Diddy, criticizing executives who want to be all in the videos, all on the records. The crowd erupted and the tension in the room was palpable. Diddy, ever the showman, later took the stage and called for unity, but the damage was done. The feud wasn't just about music anymore. It was about pride, and neither side was willing to back down.
Prosecutors gonna glamorize a case. I've had cases, and I hadn't worked for Diddy for years. You understand? And the prosecutor gonna say, Diddy former bodyguard. Get in the shootout. Diddy former bodyguard threatened a person's life or did this and did that.
Shakur's arrival at Death Row Records only escalated things further. Suge had bailed him out of legal trouble by offering him a deal with Death Row, and Shakur quickly became the label's biggest star. He wasted no time taking shots at Diddy and Biggie, releasing tracks that were as much diss records as they were hits. Meanwhile, Diddy and Bad Boy continued to dominate the charts, with Biggie solidifying his status as the king of New York. The rivalry wasn't just contained to the music industry. It spilled into the streets, with rumors of confrontations, threats, and alliances between rival crews. But what really made this feud so explosive was the sheer reach and influence of Diddy and Suge. They weren't just label heads, they were power players with connections that extended far beyond the music business. Suge, for example, was known for his ties to certain groups in Los Angeles, while Diddy, with his charm and business acumen, had built a network that included everyone from Wall Street executives to Hollywood stars. The stakes were incredibly high, and the fallout was inevitable.
What makes you say you lost your empire because of Puffy? Why you say that?
The tragic losses of Shakur and Biggie in 1996 and 1997, respectively, shocked the world and marked the darkest chapter in this saga. Both were taken far too soon, and their untimely departures only deepened the mystery and speculation surrounding the feud. Who was really responsible? Was it a coincidence that both were targeted in eerily similar circumstances, or was it the result of a larger conspiracy? These questions lingered for years, and the finger-pointing never stopped.
If I wouldn't have never met him, I wouldn't have never been involved in this. You know what I'm saying?
What made the aftermath even more puzzling were the conflicting accounts that emerged from those closest to the figures involved. While some claimed the events were driven purely by personal animosities and bad blood, others suggested the rivalry may have been manipulated by outside forces with agendas of their own. From whispers of law enforcement agencies looking to destabilize the hip-hop community, to theories involving corporate interests aiming to protect their profits, the layers of speculation only grew thicker over time. And with no definitive answers, the lines between fact and fiction blurred, leaving endless room for interpretation.
So if I go to jail, you need to be handcuffed to me.
Adding to the mystique was the role of the media in fanning the flames of the feud. Headlines sensationalized every jab, every diss track, and every public confrontation, turning what might have been a competitive rivalry into a full-scale cultural war. The press covered the East Coast-West Coast feud as if it were a sporting event, complete with commentators and scorekeeping. This constant amplification of tensions not only heightened the stakes, but also made it nearly impossible for any of the players involved to back down without appearing weak. In many ways, the media became an active participant in the drama, pushing the narrative further than anyone could have imagined. Then there's the legacy of Suge Knight and Diddy themselves. Decades later, both men remain polarizing figures, their reputations shaped as much by what they've accomplished as by what they've been accused of. For Suge, his time behind bars has only added to his image as a larger-than-life figure, someone who once wielded immense power but couldn't escape the consequences of his actions. Diddy, on the other hand, has attempted to reinvent himself time and again, from music mogul to entrepreneur to philanthropist. Yet, no matter how much he tries to move forward, the shadows of the past continue to follow him, with every new allegation or rumor threatening to chip away at the legacy he's worked so hard to build.
You know, and they're more important to the police on the streets than in here, because they let them know what's going on.
Suge and Diddy's relationship, already strained, became even more complicated in the aftermath. While neither was ever officially implicated in the events that unfolded, their names have been dragged through the mud countless times in connection with the events of the 1990s. Suge, now serving a lengthy sentence, hasn't been shy about voicing his opinions, even suggesting that justice for Shakur might still be on the horizon. Diddy, on the other hand, has remained largely silent on the matter, brushing off allegations and focusing on building his empire.
When Biggie passed, it was about Puffy getting the opportunity to become a rapper. Because if Biggie wouldn't have left, Puffy wouldn't have been a rapper.
But here's where it gets interesting. With the recent developments in the Keefe D case and the renewed focus on Diddy's alleged connections to the events of 1996, some are wondering if the truth might finally come to light. Keefe D, after all, has been open about his role in the saga, claiming to have been in the car on that fateful night. And while his accounts have been inconsistent at times, they've been enough to keep the spotlight on Diddy and others who were involved in the East Coast-West Coast feud. The whispers about Diddy's involvement aren't new, but they've gained momentum in recent years. Some insiders, whether credible or not, have alleged that Diddy may have sought protection from certain groups on the West Coast, a claim that's been both denied and hotly debated. And with Keefe D potentially willing to testify as part of a deal, the spotlight on Diddy is brighter than ever. Could this be the moment when the truth finally comes out? Or is it just another chapter in a story that seems destined to remain unresolved?
So Puffy benefited more by Biggie not being here than Biggie being here.
The East Coast-West Coast rivalry wasn't just a feud, it was a defining moment in hip-hop history. It changed the way the world viewed the genre, and its impact is still felt today. For Diddy and Suge, it was both a blessing and a curse, propelling them to new heights while also tying them to some of the darkest moments in music history. As the legal battles continue and new details emerge, one thing is clear: this story is far from over. And with the stakes as high as they've ever been, the next chapter promises to be just as explosive as the last. As the mystery surrounding Keefe D and Shakur's tragic end continues to unfold, we can't help but wonder, could there be more to the story than meets the eye? Do you think Diddy's alleged involvement holds any weight, or is it just another rumor in a decades-long saga? And what about Reggie Wright Jr.? Could he be the missing piece of the puzzle? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Let's keep the conversation going and see if we can unravel this tangled web together. Until next time, stay curious and keep the speculation alive.